And welcome back to Dollars and Dragons. If we could have our guest introduce themselves to our audience.
Hi, my name is Josh. I can be found on the internet most everywhere at Joshua M. Simons on social media or joshuamsimons.com. Since the last time I was on this show, it's been a minute. I founded a tabletop game publishing company called Broken Door Entertainment that you can find at brokendoor.shop. I work in marketing and community management primarily in the tabletop game space. Have been doing that for a number of years. But I also, like writing games and playing games and eating good food and hanging out with good friends and all the other, things that people say about themselves that aren't really that original. Long walks on the beach,
Right, yeah.
listening to music.
How much would you say now that you're still working in a marketer position or like a community manager position, or what are you doing now?
Yeah.
For like your day job?
Right now, I am doing full-time freelance for a variety of different clients. A number of them are in the tabletop game space. I would say that about half of my freelance work right now is through a game industry sort of focused marketing agency called Nine Realms Agency. And so I do, 5 to 10 hours a week for them. And then another 5 to 10 hours a week scattered across other clients. And that leaves me some time to work on my own stuff for Broken Door, my own personal projects, and also, some time to get in some freelance writing and other stuff too, which I do a little bit of here and there as well.
I always wonder, so your marketing type work, is it just putting together campaigns, or is it managing social media accounts, or what do you primarily do?
Yeah. So historically, social media management was a big part of what I did. I'm trying to shift away from that personally, although it's still, a service that I can provide. I'm fortunate that through Nine Realms we have a dedicated social media manager, so that doesn't fall on me. But I've been doing the social media thing since 2018. And just through all the changes and all that stuff, I've kind of fallen out of love of that part of it, but that is certainly part of it. There are a lot of things that go into marketing for gaming companies and gaming products. And so what exactly that looks like is dependent a little bit on the client, but at a very high level, it's thinking about how do we as a company talk about ourselves and our products in a way that is going to resonate with people, in a way that is sort of accurately and truthfully portraying us to the audiences that we're trying to reach. That integrity and honesty component is, I think, increasingly important in this day and age, whereas, 10, 20 years ago, you could probably have lied in an ad campaign and said, hey, we do X, Y, and Z. We're the greatest people in the world. And no one would have really called you on it unless it was an egregious lie. More and more people are looking for like consistency and transparency and things in marketing. And so that's what I would kind of call like marketing strategy is, hey, how are we positioning ourselves? What are we talking about in terms of features, in terms of things that make a product worth checking out? And then, the execution of that falls across all kinds of different things, including things like email marketing, social media, press outreach, working with influencers. Community management sometimes does fall under that. If there's crowdfunding, running a crowdfunding campaign is a big part of that, but also includes things that you might not always typically think of as being a core part of like marketing. But hey, let's rewrite all the text on your company's website because it doesn't accurately reflect the things that we want people to take away from a visit. And sometimes that gets balled up under like SEO, but more and more, I think you should really be writing about who you are and what you're trying to do in a way that's organic and natural, because search algorithms and tools like Google are doing a better job of translating the intent behind something and surfacing. If you search for, tabletop game company that features only games with characters in their pajamas, they might actually find things for you that are only, pajama themed tabletop role playing games, for instance. They're good at that. It's almost like they've been doing this thing for a long time. So there's a lot that goes into that. Other services that Nine Realms provides that I don't personally take part in include, like website design and graphic design. I'm not really an artist. I think my art skills peaked in about 6th grade, and it's been all downhill from there.
There's so many questions. Okay, so my follow-up to that, or just to kind of poke into that a little bit, the way that a company looks at marketing then is usually for projects based, right? It's like this product is coming out, so I need someone to dedicate this amount of time to doing the job to prepare our marketing for this product. And they kind of split it up like that. Is that how that works?
So product marketing is one sort of key part of how you approach marketing, and it is the most common one, certainly. I can also do what's called brand marketing, which is really how do we as a company represent ourselves. That is going to often be more around experiential things, right? How do we represent ourselves at an event? How do we talk about ourselves? What are the words that we use? And then how do other people talk about us? How can we help them see the truth of what we're trying to do? And then there's something called content marketing, which is really where something like social media or like the D&D Beyond, like blog posts on the site that they hire writers to write, is a great example of content marketing. It's writing about a subject, and the hope is that by providing value, people will then come back to you for other things because you've established sort of a reputation for that. I think a lot of social media influencers really start with content marketing as their bread and butter, and then if they are able to build a following off of their content, then it turns into brand marketing. Putting on my influencer hat for a second, where it's less about, okay, here's the thing I'm providing, but how do people, think about, the Friday and Friends brand, right? What do we do, and how should people think about us, and how can we talk about what we do in a way that, if someone hears about you for the first time through the grapevine, they're gonna hear the things that you want someone to hear about you.
Yeah, that's oh gosh. I guess I've just existed so that let me put my thoughts together.
Yeah.
I've kind of existed in this space where it's like I have to always do the marketing because we just don't have the money normally to hire someone. So I just like have to kind of do it myself, and then it's not as good as a dedicated person for it. So yeah, it's just I've hired people for marketing in the past, but I've had kind of mixed results, and that's not necessarily, I think, their fault.
Marketing
entirely.
is hard. It really is. And especially in our industry, it is difficult because there are a lot of people competing for very short attention spans and limited budgets. And there are a lot of ways that you can do marketing wrong in a hobby industry like ours, where things just don't click because, right, people always have the option to not buy a tabletop game, right? We aren't a necessity. We're not a need. If someone's budget shrinks, the first thing that's going to go is going to be the luxury items. And that's, what a lot of game products are. And so there's some like very like big hurdles that you face marketing in this space. And so a lot of it is trying to find ways to appeal to the things that folks love, that folks gravitate towards. So that way, when they do have that money to spend, they choose to spend it on, your game product instead of somebody else's game product. Or they say, you know what, like I need this thing so desperately, I'm going to, to use the classic millennial example, I'm not going to make avocado toast and go get coffee out a couple days this month, so that way I can afford to buy the thing that I want.
Yeah, it's always that avocado toast that's really in the way of like balancing my budget, I found. But
yeah, honestly, I spend maybe $20 a month on avocado toast. It's ridiculous.
for you, when you're like introduced to a product,
Yeah.
what's that process like as far as like how long it takes you to, I know this can vary, but like you spend how much time learning the product and then developing a strategy and all that stuff?
Yeah. Research is a key part of it. And ideally, right, I would start, come in completely, clean slate. I don't want to know what the product's creator thinks about, what they think the best selling points are, because oftentimes, right, as creators, as the person who brought this thing to life, we're a little bit too close to it in order to like very accurately understand what other people are going to resonate with. And so, just to use an example, right, I've got a superhero game. I know we're going to talk about it later, so here's my little tease. During the process of writing this game, I had to constantly like step back as I was trying to tell other people about it and say, okay, right, I'm excited about it because of X, Y, and Z, because these are the things that I really loved from, watching Teen Titans as a kid, or from more recently watching something like, My Hero Academia or the Invincible, animated show. And these are the things that I'm really excited about having in there, but that's not actually what makes it most appealing to like a general audience. And so ideally, right, when you're coming in to market something, you kind of want to go in blank slate and look at it and go, okay, why would I use this? What would draw me to this if I'd never heard of it before? What's the use cases that I think are most kind of universally applicable? What are the things that, if I saw a sign for it on the street, or if I saw, a billboard for it, or just saw a display, in the mall while I was walking through, that it would catch my eye and make me go, oh, hey, hold up, I want to go see more about that. And then you find the angle to talk about that, to highlight that, to display whatever those things are that people will gravitate towards in your ads, in your graphics. You talk about that in your product descriptions. You say, so using a very common like D&D example, almost every D&D supplement, Kickstarter, product page, whatever out there, they talk about the number of playable options that the game adds, the number of new like stat blocks that the supplement adds, because they know that those are the things that people care about, right? Oh, you're telling me that there's 4 new subclasses I can use? Awesome. 10 new spells? Great. 25 new monster stat blocks? Yeah, that's what I'm going to use for my game. Obviously, there's more to that, to any supplement, right? We don't buy stat blocks in a void, but if it's something that we're really interested in, like, mermaid stat blocks, as opposed to, I don't know, boring rock stat blocks, maybe that's the angle that you can sell someone on, right? Hey, if you're really into mermaids, you're going to love these 15 mermaid stat blocks. Whereas, if you're trying to sell stat blocks of different types of rocks, here's my granite versus, here's my marble versus, here's my shale, right? Like, that's kind of boring. I wouldn't buy that personally, just to like come up with an example that's kind of outrageous off the top of my head. Then from there, right, I try to talk to, people who have used it, people who have a review for me, right? Some kind of feedback to say, oh, yeah, I used this new product and here's what I thought about it. Here's what I liked about it. Here's what I didn't like about it. And I go, okay, the things that you like are those things that we can highlight. The things that you didn't like, is that a matter of like expectations not being set? Is that an issue with the product that we can bring back to the product creator and say, hey, is this a thing you're going to address? How can we address it? If not, we have to account for that in our messaging for it. And then talk to the creator and say, okay, here's how we think we're going to talk about this. Here's why we think these are the things that are going to resonate most with people. Let us know what you think. And pitch the angle. Write up some draft copy. Put together some sort of placeholder graphics and say, here's what we're thinking. How do you feel about this? Does this feel like an accurate representation of your product? Because ultimately, it's on whoever the client is to make the final decision of, yeah, we're going to do this or not. But we try to put together this, sort of packet for here's how we would approach selling this thing. If it was up to us, go ahead and take a look and approve what you want to approve. Let's tweak what we need to tweak and make sure that you're happy ultimately with what we're doing on your behalf.
How long do you say that normally takes you if you're looking at like a book?
If I'm looking at a book product, I only do a quick skim. Probably do that in a couple of hours, maybe 3 to 4. I think the key thing is, right, like it's asynchronous at times, right? It's okay. Give me some play testers. Who can I talk to who's played this? If no one has played it, then, I need to go like run a quick, 2-hour session and get a feel for it and then hear from, my players. What do you think about this? What did you like? What didn't you like? So that's where, it can vary a little bit, but a few hours, I would say, 3 to 4 hours of research. And then at that point, hopefully you've got, a decent pitch.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fun project. I like to think of it like a puzzle, right? You're right, trying to find the things that people will love, that people will gravitate towards. And then, it's applying like some basic understandings of like human psychology in terms of like colors and, where you place things on an image. And that's where, I'm not an expert. I said earlier, my artistic skills peaked in 6th grade. I don't do the graphic design, but, I do try to take notes of the things that good designers around me do. So that way, maybe one day I can understand what's happening in theory, even if I can't do it in practice.
Yeah. I mean, there's still something we said about, everyone has their own taste. But yeah, that's just okay. That was mostly to satisfy my curiosity. So thank you for that.
Of course.
Yeah. I guess that's what this whole podcast is really just like, I'm very curious about how you do the thing you do. That all makes sense. But yeah, the real struggle that I've run into is like, and I try to get away from doing it again for How to GM Romance, my last Kickstarter or my last crowdfunding campaign on Backer Kit, but I ended up having to do the marketing for that, and I'd have preferred to have not. And initially that was our plan because I knew that it's more difficult for me to see the product for what it is and then to also do a good job with the lead up and everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it can be hard to distance yourself as the creator of a project in order to really do that objectively. Sometimes you got to do it though, right? Like in this industry, a lot of us are doing things independently. I do it for all my own stuff. It would probably be better if I had someone else do it for me, but budget wise, like, right. I can only pay for so much. And so, we in an ideal world, we would all have, a budget to hire marketing professionals and they would tell great stories about the things that we're making and selling and everyone would love it and we'd all make $1 million. But, I haven't woken up in that world yet.
Let's talk about Broken Door.
Let's do it.
Do you have more than yourself in the company and you do freelance, or like how do you structure yourself?
Yeah. So when I initially founded the company, I had a co-founder
Uh-huh.
who, unfortunately, life got busy and she had
Uh-huh.
a change of job and so had to step down. So right now it is just me.
Mhm.
But I am still working with a great team of collaborators who are mostly freelance for the time being. I'd love to bring some of them on in a part-time or full-time capacity.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of having enough budget in order to do that. Um, and still be able to do the other things that we need to do, like buy products and pay for the things that someone on staff can't do. Uh, like right now, I hire someone to do layout, I hire an editor, I hire artists. I'd love to get the people who were doing those things for me on payroll eventually. We're probably a little ways away from that still, just because it's a new company and I've only really got one main product line right now.
Right.
But I was going somewhere and lost my train of thought for a second. But just because it is only me doesn't mean that I'm creating things in a vacuum here. I've been very intentional about trying to work with either collaborators who are going in 50-50 on a project, or hiring someone to sort of be my developmental editor, and make sure that I'm not working on things in a void, because I find that I work best and have my sort of best creative output when I've got someone to bounce ideas off of, when I can sort of have a writer's room and say, hey, what about this? Well, how do you feel about that? I've got two ideas for how we could do this here. Would you rather go for option A or option B? And that back and forth, I think, really helps make the end product a lot stronger. A great example of that from what we did with Paragons, which is our first Kickstarter, crowdfunded last year. It's an indie superhero game, uses a D6 dice pool system, very similar to the Year Zero engine. Um, I hired Taylor Navarro, who is a phenomenal writer and editor in her own right, to be my developmental editor, because I knew that I wanted someone with a different sort of tabletop background. She does a lot of things in the indie space, a lot of really creative and neat and innovative tabletop games that are a little different than my background, which has primarily come from like wargaming into the D20 scene with D&D and Pathfinder, and have really only started dabbling in the indie stuff for the last couple of years. And so I wanted to get someone with a very different sort of perspective to help me make sure that these mechanics were doing things that I wanted. And there were a whole bunch of steps along the way where I would kind of write up a draft for how I thought a rule would work. Then I would go, hey, Taylor, does this make sense? And then she would go, I think this works, but thematically, I wonder if you could do something like X, Y, and Z. And then we would, come together and hop on a call and say, oh yeah, you know what? Like, here's a really great way to take the mechanical thing that works and put the flavor component that really meets the superhero aesthetic, and put them together in a way that I think is the strongest expression of some of those game mechanics that could have come out. So I'm very pleased with the outcome there. Taylor is amazing. Hire her. I feel like anytime I talk about Paragons, I talk about how great of an editor she is. But was a very productive process working with her, because I had that back and forth, that bouncing of ideas around, and I think that's going to continue to be my first priority as I develop new things. Is, okay, who can I collaborate with this on? Who can I bring in to make my ideas stronger? Or whose ideas can I collaborate with in order to help them make it stronger? It doesn't have to be all my stuff. I'd love to help other people, develop their games and bring them to print too.
We are Taylor stands on this podcast, so I've had I have never worked directly with Taylor. I've had her on the podcast before to talk about Big Bad Con with some others, but I've had very good impressions, and she has a good reputation. And one of the things about this industry it's been very interesting for me to sort of realize and think about is like your reputation is very important in this industry because it's so small. It's such a small industry.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just I don't know if it's like it's probably just an anxiety thing for me, but like I worry about my reputation.
Sure.
And I think that's like a normal thing to do, but
yeah,
it's just one of those things where it's like, yeah, did I do a good job to present myself a particular way? That's not necessarily fake, but like at the same time, like I have this thing where I feel like sometimes I have difficulty worrying too much about my interactions with people.
No, I totally hear that, and I understand it because I experience it too. It's, I think, very easy to be anxious or second guess, particularly, right? We're all humans. I've had bad days where I, was at a convention and met someone and, wasn't on, right? I was tired. It was the end of the day, or, just wasn't in the right headspace to like put on a good first impression. And so, I totally hear that. I think ultimately, right, if you treat people that you work with well, if they have a good experience working with you, they will want to continue working with you. If you leave the space better than you found it, if you are, helpful to those who, need help, and are able to, offer something like some tips and tricks on social media, or great value from a podcast talking about how to do what we do in this space, or can go participate in like a mentorship program, or take a little bit of time to introduce someone new to the hobby to a couple of people that would be good for them to know based on what their goals in the space are. All those little things sort of add up. And people will ultimately get a good picture of who you are and the type of person you are, from the culmination of everything you do in the space. Right, like I said, I've had bad days. I know I've made poor impressions on people when I wish I hadn't. And all I can hope is that eventually they talk to someone who's had a great experience with me, and they hear that, what, maybe Josh was just having a bad day, or
Right.
But like I have to hope, right? And at the same time, I try to approach interactions with folks with that same mentality. Because if I want people to see the best in me, or give me the benefit of the doubt, I also have to do the same.
Absolutely. Sometimes I've like been in that sort of, I've had a lot of hard times in the industry since I started, and that's because this industry is fucking brutal for a number of reasons, and it's like the budgets are brutal, like trying to get marketing off the ground is difficult, like, and that doesn't even include like the actual designing the game that you're making, like having to find a publisher is very difficult. I really lucked out with Metal Weave Games for How to GM Romance, and like I like trying to get stuff off the ground without a publisher's assistance is like mega difficult. So congratulations on Paragons and funding, and then almost immediately delivering, it looks like. And I want to talk about your game and where it started, how it came to be, as far as like You had this all in, like, ready to go. It seemed like, didn't you? Before you were.
Yeah, I had started working on the like core mechanics probably back in 2022. Honestly, it's been in development like as a side project for a very long time. Back when I worked at Demiplane, I would occasionally hey, it's a low key afternoon. I'm gonna go take a couple hours. I'm gonna work on something for me. I'm gonna go sort of recharge my creative batteries by doing something fun, right? A fun creative project. And a lot of the time that was working on what eventually became Paragons. Um, so I spent a lot of time on it over the years, and hit a point where I had more or less written the first draft of the manuscript. I would say that it was like 80 or 90% done when I started going around and pitching it to publishers. This would have been in probably late 2023, mid to late 2023. And I was like, I'm close, right? I need a good like 6-month sprint on this, and it'll be across the finish line. And I'm also the type of person, I should preface this, right? Like, I have some very strong ADHD tendencies. So if I ever stopped working on it, I knew for a fact that, it would be a year until I came back to it. And so I was like, I need to get this done. While I can still focus on this, while it's still, the hyperfixation of the moment, I need to get this as far along as possible. And so I started shopping it around to publishers. I took a few meetings, talked with some great people. But ultimately, the feedback I got was, hey, we really like this. It's cool. It needs a little bit more, time to develop, go back, do some more playtesting. And then we can talk about, fitting you into our publishing schedule sometime in like 2026 or 2027. And I was like, okay, the point about playtesting and feedback, super valid. I had, done a handful of playtesting sessions as I'd gone. And so I went back and I dove into playtesting pretty aggressively, and was running like 1 to 2 sessions a week pretty consistently, mostly for friends or friends of friends in the space, who I knew really liked superheroes and would be able to give me good feedback about how the game worked aesthetically, how we told that type of story, and then separately working with groups that we're all game designers or we're all game writers and could give me really strong mechanical feedback. And so I dove into that, and really put like 2 months into playtesting, taking very like meticulous notes anytime there was some kind of breakdown in play, anytime something didn't feel right. I went through and re-rolled a whole bunch of stuff, based off of that. Got to like February of 2024. I was like, okay, I'm in a pretty good spot here. I think we need a good, editing pass. I need to get some artwork done for this. And I'm ready to send this out the door. And then in March of 2024, I got laid off. And I was like, hey, I have all this time. I'm just going to do it, right? Like, the best way to learn is by doing. I'm just going to do it. And so I hopped on a call with a couple of folks that had done either self-publishing or published with an established publisher. I talked through what are the things I need to know, what are the hurdles that are going to surprise me along the way, what things do I need to plan for as I go. I sort of developed this business plan, and I said, great, let me take this extra cash I have from being laid off. Let me tack with some friends and see if I can't find someone who's willing to go in on this with me, and let's get this thing made. And the rest is sort of history. We started working on it pretty aggressively in April of 2024. The quick start guide was done in September, right before the crowdfunding campaign launched. But the only thing at that point outstanding on the manuscript was just editing the parts that weren't in the quick start guide. So, I would say that we were 70% edited when the crowdfunding campaign launched. I had just enough budget to get the artwork done. I had just enough budget to get the layout done. And then everything since getting that quick start guide out as part of the crowdfunding campaign has come from, the funds we got from the Kickstarter. But there wasn't a whole lot left to do. And that was kind of by design, because I knew that I wanted to get it as far along as possible, as quickly as possible. And I knew that the faster I could fulfill that first campaign, one, the faster I could start working on the next thing, but also the better impression that makes of, a brand new company to say, hey, not only have we, got this project that's funded, but also we've got the PDF in your hands 3 months later. And then, we've got the physical book in your hands, 9 months later. And so that's really been my goal here, is to make sure that I am as far along as possible before I start talking about something publicly, before I crowdfund it or start marketing for it. So that way, that enthusiasm, that hype that builds as part of a crowdfunding campaign or as part of a marketing campaign ends with, and here's the product, it's in your hands. That's a personal approach. I think it's not the only approach, but it was very important to me getting started and getting things off the ground, that I do it that way, because I don't want people to be sitting around wondering what's going on, wondering where the game is. And also, as soon as I'm done fulfilling this Kickstarter, and my packaging arrived today. The book should be here in about 2 to 3 weeks. So
nice.
like I am trying very hard to get this book fulfilled, because I've got more things that I want to do, and I don't want to have Kickstarter fulfillment looming over my head while I'm trying to write the next thing or work on the next thing after that. So it's very much an intentional, strategic, thing from business operations. But the thing that let me do that was I had basically 2 years where I was working full time, and then just working on this game on the side, and I was able to get it very far along. It's not like a huge game book. It's like 124, 125 pages, somewhere in there. So it's not like a massive book. But I was able to spend a lot of time developing it on the side as a hobby. And so that way, when it came time for me to say, okay, hold up, I need to start doing this like it's a job, there wasn't a whole lot left to do at that point.
Yeah. Well, we're going to include, so if you go in the show notes, you'll see the link to Paragons. For those that are curious about the book, what's the pitch to get them over the edge to take a look?
Yeah. If you like superhero stories, particularly if you, like me, grew up watching shows like Teen Titans, like Batman the Animated Series, like the old, X-Men cartoons, or Avengers, or any of those, Justice League Unlimited was a good one. Any of those animated shows, I have tried to create a game that captures that feeling, where you are a superhero, you are part of a team that is, hunting down bad guys, investigating crimes, and saving the world. We've got mechanics for training and leveling up your abilities. We've got mechanics for investigating and uncovering mysteries and solving puzzles. And ultimately, it's inspired by a love for superheroes and comic characters. And so that's why I think someone would love it. Mechanically, like I said, it's a D6 dice pool system, so it's really flexible. It's really easy to learn. I think it's fun. I'm biased, obviously, but I have a great time playing it. And because the mechanics are so easy, I think they let you really very creatively express your character in play in a way that makes it fun to feel like a hero.
I've noticed when I was reading the book that the narrative structure is sort of encouraged to fall within the animated series style of storytelling. And I find that to be very interesting, and it's a good genre choice. Because I think, and I do think that not a lot of games actually make these narrative choices for you. And one of the other things we were talking about reputation in the TTRPG industry. So this game has a reputation system as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, it came from some of these. Well, actually, it was directly inspired by Spider-Man, frankly, because the whole thing that Spider-Man deals with the Daily Bugle and J. Jonah Jameson is there's this reporter out there who's got it out for him. And that's the thing that Spider-Man has to tackle, right? He knows that he's a hero. He knows he's trying to do the right thing, but his reputation is sometimes not stellar because there's all this propaganda out there against him. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to play with, the pressure that comes from being in the public eye as a hero? That's a key part of, I think, hero stories that oftentimes you don't see as much in media. And I certainly haven't, seen a mechanic for it in the past that I loved how it worked. And so the way it works is if you do cool, heroic acts and the public sees you, that helps your reputation. But if you fail as a hero and, someone gets hurt or dies, if you break the law publicly, if you have a bad interview with a journalist or a social media influencer who comes up to you on the street after a fight and you say something unkind, that could also hurt your reputation. And then your reputation at the GM's discretion can change how people interact with you. If you've got a great reputation, maybe you've got adoring fans who want to come up and, get an interview or an autograph or take a picture. And if you've got a bad reputation, then, maybe that means that people are less likely to help you and you're going to have a harder time doing hero work. And I think it opens interesting storytelling avenues for, groups of characters like the Suicide Squad, who is a bunch of criminals who've been brought together to do something good, sort of against their wishes, but also against what people would expect of them. It gives you a framework that you can play within if you want to tell stories about the pressure of being in the public eye, of having to deal with the reputation, and dealing with the consequences of your actions in a way that is very real and very tangible. But not a lot of superhero stories, I feel like, dig into that as well as I wanted to dig into it,
Yeah, that definitely doesn't. I mean, there's kind of the new age of superhero stories in the past 10, 15 years with Watchmen and Invincible and sort of that brand of morally ambiguous. Because superheroes a long time ago, back when they were for kids, essentially, they kind of stayed within a very strict moral compass that would be acceptable within I guess public morality and social mores at the time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I just I personally don't. I'm not as into it. I mean, like, I'm very interested to see what uh Gunn does with the new Superman movie, because I think he's gonna actually do it well. But that sort of story, when it's not done well, it's like it's difficult to do in a pure way, I guess I should say.
Yeah.
Um, because
Yeah.
the difficulty of like this sort of shallow narrative is that it's difficult to engage with unless it's, I guess, done in a way that is believable, which I guess is like half the battle here. Like, how do you create a story with these fantastical things happening in our modern world, and have them still be human, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think wrestling with those things makes for a really interesting story if that's the type of game that you want to play and the story you want to tell. Um, like you said, historically heroes have done a lot of things, and as you were talking about that, I was just kind of thinking. One of the things that I like that My Hero Academia does really well is um, you see a lot from like the villain's perspective and the
Mm-hmm.
the sort of public perception around heroes and how that shifts as the narrative changes, as heroes make sacrifices, but also mess up in the public eye or can't stop the villain, and it's not for everybody, right? Some people want to just have a fun game, a fun story where you show up and you kill the bad guys and you don't have to think about the ethics behind it. And that's, if that's what you want to play, like, cool, I'm not going to stop you, but I want to provide tools and options for people who do want to explore morally gray characters or explore worlds where there are very real consequences to actions. um, I think there are a lot of really cool things that you can do with a superhero story, beyond just inspire and create a source of hope and um, you know uh, escapism. Uh, Although it's certainly great for that, and so I like to think of the way that we've written the rules here as a toolkit more than anything else. A great example of this is we've got a mechanic in there called story points, which your game master can accrue story points over the course of a session, and then can spend story points to introduce complications or new villains into a scene. Personally, I run a slightly more free form style of game than that. So I don't really use story points personally, but I know GMs that like that kind of mechanic, who like to have something that tells them, here's when I can do this, here's how I can do this. So I created that as a tool, even though it's one that I'm not personally, inclined to use very frequently, because that's what I view building a game system really as it should be. It is, here's all the things you can do, here's all the options you have, pick and choose the things that speak to you the most, that are going to make your game as fun and enjoyable as possible, and throw away anything else that you don't particularly like.
All right. You can check out Paragons with the link in the show description. Josh, thanks so much for stopping by today to talk about your game. And a lot of other stuff, actually. We didn't even get to your game until quite a bit into the episode.
I think anytime we talk, it is a fun and engaging conversation. I was reflecting before coming on to do this here today, what we talked about last time and the wide ranging topics we hit. And it's always a pleasure. Thanks for having me, Friday. I'll come back anytime you want.
I will hold you to that. Great.
Deal.